Today we are having what's this? Grapefruit sparkling water. Dominic, what are you having?
That sounds horrific. I'm just having good old-fashioned water. Yeah.
You're just having water, yeah?
Water from the whole house filtration tap. What can I say?
And Mariano, how about you?
I just drank some milk.
Milk?
Milk?
Yeah.
Ew. What? Who drinks milk anymore?
I drink milk, real milk.
Oh, forgot, Mariano is a baby, literally, so it's drinking.
No, I'm not a baby. It's the most
good for your bones, Mariano.
in the world,
Yeah,
and I cannot believe that people. I cannot believe that people don't drink milk. Honestly.
Well, in the United States, the milk sucks out here, right? They pasteurize it and they kill it, and it's just not really that great. Maybe it's different in Argentina. Maybe. You guys have raw milk out there? Is it raw?
What?
Is it raw milk?
It's raw. Yeah, I get raw milk.
Well, see, that's different. Like out here, it's like you got to beg, borrow, and steal to find raw milk. So pasteurized milk is pretty much all you get out here. Didn't know that this was a podcast on milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I once asked, on a flight, on a flight attendant, they said, "Hey, what do you want to drink?" And I said, "Milk." And she looked at me weird, like I asked an inappropriate question. It's like, I just want some milk. You have it with coffee. I want it like just milk without the coffee. But it's the most tasty substance in the world. And I read somewhere that as long as you continue to drink milk, you cannot be lactose intolerant. So it's like, I'm preparing myself.
Heyo.
What up? Look who comes late to the party.
Talking about milk.
I was just taking a nap.
We're talking about milk. Mariano actually drinks milk. Believe that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Why is that crazy?
Yeah, right? That's what I said.
Oh man, nobody drinks milk.
I don't drink milk, but like I don't think it's that crazy to drink milk.
For people who are listening to the podcast, type it in the comments. What beverage do you normally drink when you are listening to podcast?
Exactly. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
We want to see what people are drinking.
And what are you drinking?
If it's milk or not. Yeah. So with that being said, okay, guys, let's get into some of the current events that are going on inside the crypto space. So I know that there was a pretty decent or savvy hack and exploit on the Adzuki exploit. And Mariano, you've done a little bit of research on this. So
yes.
What does all of this mean? Like, what actually happened, and what does all of it mean for the entire space?
So let's take it from the beginning. There was this very famous NFT trader that he was performing different trades, buying and selling NFTs, and he noticed that on a particular type of NFT that he purchased, he was making offers, and there was another person or bot that was making similar offers to him, right? So he saw a pattern into that, and he saw that on every single type of Adzuki NFT that had a white background, the bot was copying his offers. And no matter what offer did he put, the bot also copied that offer. And he saw an opportunity. And what essentially he did was an exploit of that bot, where he sold his own NFTs by essentially creating himself a high offer, way more than the market value of that NFT. And since the bot was copying his offers, the bot did an offer similar to his. Then it was as simple as him accepting that offer, and he sold the NFT for 50 ETH, around 50 Ethereum, when it was like worth like 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that. And he started doing this with all the NFTs that entered that category, so that they had a specific type of background. And in total, I don't know exactly the exact number, but he managed to extract from the bot around 800 Ethereum, so $1.4 million worth of value. Now, this is not the end of the story. The actual owners of the bot, they come out, and because the guy publicly announced it, I don't know why, probably for bragging rights, the guy said that if he's willing to return the stolen funds, he can keep a 10% white hat. And this has sparked a huge debate in the crypto community over whether the actions that he have done were moral or not, or if they were legal or not. And I think it's a very interesting discussions, because on the one hand, perhaps the law wouldn't qualify that as stealing, because there was no violence involved, there was no any threat of any kind. He just saw an opportunity of pricing things higher, and somebody else was copying them. So on the legal side, I am pretty sure that he won't have any trouble, because he didn't steal things from a legal perspective. But on the moral thing, that's where the huge discussion is happening, whether, like, even though you didn't steal from a legal perspective, did you knowing this information you had in before, did you do certain things to capitalize yourself, extracting value from this bot, which obviously he did. But is that morally acceptable or not acceptable? It's then a discussion between you and God, right? It's a very subjective discussion. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Would you have personally exploited this bot if you had the chance? What are the intricacies that you guys think of? And also remember that the bot also had an intention of making money, right? And you could also discuss and argue that the intention of the bot is not very moral, because he's copying other person's strategies, so he maybe got what he deserved.
So is it, if I'm understanding this correctly, is it kind of tantamount to being at an auction and you're an actor that's just bidding up the auction price, right?
Yeah.
Now, he ended up actually, scamming out the bot, right? So there was a financial motive and a financial reward to him. But nevertheless, just from a strategy perspective, it seemed like what you're describing is he's essentially an actor sitting here in an auction bidding up the price.
Yeah, for example. So we know, Dominic, that Michael is an amazing NFT trader, right? And he makes a lot of money because he's very good at it. He finds opportunities. And what we want to do is we want to copy his strategies, right? Without his permission, because we don't need his permission. So we create a small system that analyzes every single action that the wallet of Michael is doing and replicates them by doing a slightly more expensive offer to what he's intending to purchase. So we are extracting a lot of alpha opportunities for him. But Michael, because he's very smart, saw that, and he published his own NFTs and made an offer to his own NFTs, an offer that he was never intended on accepting, but was intended on accepting the offer of the bot. And selling the NFT at a significantly higher price than what it's worth.
Yeah, so he actually purchased those Azukis to be able to do this. He saw this, then he bought all the white background Azukis, then he bid it up on his own NFTs. So yeah, this very much wasn't an Azuki exploit. It was an exploit of the bot itself. And this could have been done with any NFT, with any traits. So why he chose Azuki is another question. But
what do you think, Michael? Do you consider it moral, this thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, copy trading moral? Like, you know what? I think that the copy traders shot themselves in the foot by implying that he was a thief. Now he can double down and because if he gives the money back, then he's admitting he's a thief, which he certainly isn't a thief. He just saw someone copying him and faked them out. And I think there's really nothing wrong with that. That's my opinion.
He just kind of gamed it. He gamed it.
Yeah.
There was an exploit. There was an opportunity to game it, and he gamed it. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like a bug bounty. A company putting out a bug bounty. Like, hey, find the bugs in our system. That's what he did. He found it. He found the exploit.
Yeah, found a bug in the bot, and that's why I always say, like, don't trust bots. You think your bot's foolproof, and then all of a sudden someone discovers something goes wrong, and then you wake up and all your money disappeared, and you're like, oh, yeah. I thought this was a good idea. Yeah. So I'm very wary with bots in general, although, that's a pretty, NFT specific exploit. I guess I wonder if the bot was only looking at NFT trades or if it was also looking at regular crypto trades first, and it's just sort of an all-encompassing bot. Because then, yeah, you can sort of, find all sorts of interesting ways to mess with those copy traders. So I think this will ultimately make copy traders stronger, make them better at what they do. by educating them. This is a good case study in the space for people to learn from.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Actually, is what does this mean for the actual space? What do we learn from this as a kind of as an industry? What occurs as a subsequent to this? So interesting. Any thoughts on it, VJ?
There is a lot of wash trading and other things that are happening in the NFT space. And the entire crypto ethos is code is law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mariano mentioned earlier that, is there an ethical reason? And if you think about the original DAO that a hacker exploited, I think it was $150 million of Ethereum at that point in time,
50.
which caused the split of Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. There were one group of people that said that, hey, code is law. What the hacker did was completely within the confines. If he was able to find an exploit, good for him, but we're not going to roll back the blockchain. And that group went into Ethereum Classic. And the other group headed by Vitalik, and which became Ethereum as it is right now, said that no, this cannot happen, and rolled back the change. So there is not a clear distinction as to what are the moral implications and what are the legal implications for being able to make exploits like this. And also, right, this is the world's biggest bounty that is there. If anyone can exploit anything, then people will find the loophole for being able to make money.
I mean, that's effectively the hacker's game, right? The hacker game is to get hired is to effectively hack a protocol or hack something that it kind of gives them some acclaim. And then they end up landing themselves a 6-figure job. So it's kind of the tried and true way in which it's done. So yeah, I think it's interesting, but I kind of do. Oh, what do we got there?
Somebody ring my bell. I'm very sorry. I need to quickly check. I'll be right back.
That's what a bell sounds like in Argentina. I love it. So, all right. Well, there's other news in the world this week, which is pretty groundbreaking. Actually, is that behemoth like PayPal has essentially notified everybody through press release that they are going to be launching their own stablecoin. With PayPal being the size that PayPal is, I don't know their exact market cap size, but they kind of showing their hand that they're getting into the crypto space by launching their own stablecoin, I don't think is a small matter at all. But interested definitely in what everybody else thinks. So what do you guys think about PayPal, launching this?
So PayPal launched a stable coin called PYUSD. So let's just call it PYUSD. And it's backed 1:1 with US dollars. It follows the same methodology. They use Paxos. Paxos is a stable coin as a service provider. They are the providers for BUSD, which is for Binance. And they follow the existing legal framework. The existing legal framework is by having it go through a custodian, and custodians are regulated players who are expected to hold assets and say that they hold these assets. There are legal ramifications if they say that they do not hold assets, right? So the framework for PayPal is the same framework that is used for BUSD and others. It's different from the Tether framework, wherein which Tether has self-custody of the assets or not, although they have been publishing reports based on what their assets is backed by. And stablecoin itself is a great business, right? Imagine someone comes to you and says, hey, here is a bunch of money, and any return you get from the money is yours to keep. And I just want to have the same amount of money next year, right? If you look at Circle has a market cap of like $50 billion or so. And even if it is sitting in treasury, earning 5%. So 5% of 50 billion is, how much is that? About 10% is 5 billion, about 2.5 billion. So they are earning 2.5 billion in revenue. If they can get 5% on their entire holdings, right? So it's a really, really great business. and they don't have to do anything, right? They can just buy treasuries. So that's why people like PayPal and others are looking into it. There is huge demand for US dollar, and US dollar is the world's reserve currency. And if you look at Circle report, they estimate that 70% of US dollars is used outside of the US. It's in countries like Argentina and other places where they are using it instead of cash, they're using USDC as an equivalent. So there is plenty of demand for stable coin around the world. And also the Federal Reserve came and said a warning against PayPal issuing the stable coin. So we need to figure out what's going to happen with that. They warned every bank that's doing business with PayPal that, hey, if you are doing business with PayPal and they are doing the stable coin, be warned, right? So that's what, in essence, the Federal Reserve has come and said. We'll have to see how that evolves. Overall, I do think that it's actually bullish for the crypto space, specifically for Ethereum. It's super bullish for Ethereum. PayPal has like 450 million users, and even if a small percentage of the users end up using the stable coin, they're all going to be paying fees for Ethereum. So it's super bullish for Ethereum, in my opinion, and for the crypto space. But the legal ramifications, we'll have to wait and see how it evolves.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. There's a couple things to unpack there that I think is important, which is, okay, number one, you mentioned that 70% of all the dollars in circulation are outside the United States. I believe we refer to that as the Eurodollar system. So for those of you that are not familiar with that, it's actually known as a Eurodollar market, which that market, like Vijay said, is actually bigger than the domestic dollar supply. So that's important to consider. The second thing that I want you to comment on, Vijay, is, do you think that this revenue model, as it relates to stable coins, because a lot of these banks or these issuers are actually holding treasuries, and because treasuries are paying, what they're paying now, 5.5%, does this profit model only exist in a higher interest rate environment? So let's say the Fed all of a sudden, starts to lower interest rates. They start to, they go from a hard hiking cycle or a hard money cycle to a softer money policy over the next couple of years. Does that adjust? So how does that impact like what the stablecoin issuers are doing with having large amounts of treasuries as their collateral?
So thanks for the clarification. The 70% number that I was referring to was the number provided by Circle CEO around where they are seeing usage of the USDC stable coin. So it's slightly different from the Eurodollar system. But to answer your question, I mean, yes, most of the assets that is backing the stable coin is invested in short-term treasuries. And right now the interest rate is high. But even so, right, what if the treasury only yields like 2% or 3%? You're still making 3% on $50 billion for doing what? Nothing, right? Like, now you don't have to do anything else. The Ethereum network operates the stable coin, right? There is no very minimal overhead cost. All you have to do is file the compliance. It's a great business and a big deal. You're not earning 2.5 billion. You're only earning 2 billion or 1.5 billion. Still a great business. And if the interest rate goes down, maybe they'll move away from short-term treasuries into some other assets. Maybe there are other assets that can produce 4 to 5% return. Overall, a very great business wherein which you are getting money, you get to keep all the interest that is earned, and Ethereum is doing all the heavy lifting for the bank transfer and all the other things that are needed. So I don't see the stablecoin business going down anytime soon. The major challenge is the government regulation and what the Federal Reserve said when PayPal made that announcement, and even for BUSD, right? They're against BUSD. So there are obviously a lot of politics involved, right? If Circle is getting paid $2.5 billion for not doing much, they do have, they're going to use at least some of the money to protect their territory, right? They're going to use it for protecting the territory. essentially to create a legal or regulatory moat around it, because there is not much moat. And Paxos, anyone can go and, if you have enough money, you can go launch your own stable coin with the help of Paxos. So the only moat for stable coin is the branding and the trust around the stable coin. But overall, right, I think it's bullish for the space and bullish for Ethereum.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because I think that adds a lot of, I appreciate that additional nuance there. My only hope is that PayPal or Paxos or whoever is managing the treasury didn't hire someone from Silicon Valley Bank to manage it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was reading that PayPal basically is doing this as their stock's been going down for the past couple of years, and they're doing this as a way to kind of revitalize their brand. I think that's a good move. I think it's definitely, adds legitimacy to the crypto space. But separately, I also read that Paxos has had trouble with the SEC. Have you guys heard about that? Okay.
For BUSD?
I'm not sure. I just kind of I just remember hearing that they had trouble with the SEC. I don't have any actual information on it.
They had, SEC went after BUSD, and Paxos is the underlying provider.
Okay.
So,
So, who knows? Maybe the US will have qualms with onshore stablecoins, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I think the room is rather crowded in those that are having difficulty with the SEC. So yeah, that's a very crowded room. But I like the fact that PayPal is actually, stepping forward and saying, hey, we're going to stick our necks out on the line and actually do this. So it could be it could be the setup for a very interesting fight going forward over the next months and years. And maybe this is a multi-year period where, issuers like PayPal and others start to come to the fore and actually face the SEC regarding this. And maybe this will force their hand to actually do something decent for the space and providing some guidance. So I think it's interesting. So as a continuation of that, there were CPI numbers that were released this week that I think they came in right, if I'm not mistaken, right around 3%. So they're kind of expected what the market kind of expected that. But Vijay, what do you make of the CPI numbers?
CPI came at 3.2% compared to a year ago in July. It's slightly below the expectation, but core CPI is at 4.7%, right? So the consumer price index, the core CPI, that is below estimate. The inflation is being down from its almost 4-decade high. Middle of last year, around June, July of last year was when we had the highest inflation. So it is down from that high, the 40-year high. But the Federal Reserve, their target is 2%, right? So the Federal Reserve, the Fed has dual mandate. One is to have stable prices, which means that you want to keep the inflation at bay, and they are targeting 2%. And also you want to have stable employment, which means that you don't want to have too much unemployment or too little on the other hand. So it's still above the 2% target. And I think the interest rate, we're going to see the ramification of it over the next 6 to 9 months. So let's see. I think the inflation would continue to go down. The key is can they do, it's continuing to go down. Can they soften it so that it maintains at 2%? Because if it goes below that, we're going to have a deflationary environment. And I know people in crypto, deflation is like, yay, deflation, right? If Ethereum is on a deflationary path, people get excited about it. But for a larger economy to operate with the Keynesian economic model, you cannot operate in a deflationary environment. It will create massive disruption. So the key is, can we kind of get to the 2% and level off with the 2%? So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think right now we're in a disinflationary environment, which is essentially a period of lowering inflation rate. So it's still inflationary, but it's just the lowering of that rate. So it goes from 5% to 4% to 3%. So we're essentially in a disinflation environment. Now, what does that mean? Because when the Fed is hiking rates, generally speaking, the effects of that do not get felt for 12, 18 months later. So, since we've had as you've said, even before on this podcast, that we've undergone the fastest rate hike cycle, I believe, in history. So what is the full impact of that? And, we really only started hiking rates back in February of 2022. So, we're right around 15, 16 months of when the rate hiking cycle started and getting to the end of it now. So the full effects of it, I don't think are really felt in the economy yet. So will be very interesting to see. And as you mentioned, in the crypto space, what do we love, right? We love deflation, but you don't love deflation unless you're Mariano in Argentina. You might love Argentina right now.
Give me some deflation.
You would probably beg, borrow, and steal for a little deflation, I think.
Please. Yeah, I would. I would beg for it.
Any other comments, you guys, on the whole CPI numbers? No?
Yeah, the Fed had 11 consecutive interest rate hikes. We're going to see in September whether they're going to continue to raise the interest rate or not. And the economy has also slowed down, right? The GDP in the first half of 2023, it was around 2.4%. So the costs are coming down. The costs of used cars have come down, and other core CPI index for food and other things are coming down. So we are not done yet, and at the same time, can we do it in a way where the economy doesn't go into a recession? So that we'll have to wait and see that.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting how they, the CPI numbers. You got to take the CPI numbers also with a grain of salt. I feel, because excludes volatile food and energy. Right? It's like the biggest expenses that most all of us have is food and energy and shelter, and those are too volatile to include in the CPI numbers. So I think that's you also got to consider that. Mm-hmm. I actually just saw a chart just recently before we got on where it talked about, or it showed that, what was it? Auto insurance. Auto insurance is up 17% year over year. So there are still sectors of the market that are extremely inflation, or that are very high inflation. So nevertheless, I think to your point, VJ, it's just a gauge. It's one gauge, one of many. It's something that the market, very much is, very attracted to. It's a very high priority one. So we need to follow it. We need to monitor it. And, so what do we glean from it? And you've already mentioned that. You've already addressed that. But what I'd like to talk about is, what does this mean for Bitcoin volatility, right? Yeah. Because we've already seen kind of what's going on in Bitcoin. We got up to 30,000. Now it's kind of like, it's fledgling a little bit. I think it's dipped down below 30,000 just a little bit. So what does this mean for maybe the short, medium term of Bitcoin?
So let me address the previous one. So BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they are the ones that are releasing the CPI number. And earlier this year, they made a change in the formula, right? So the way the CPI number is calculated starting in January of this year has been changed. And the change essentially is that rather than taking the inflation based on the average of 2 years, they are taking the average of 1 year. So starting in January, there was a formula change. So if you cannot beat inflation, you just change the formula for inflation so that it's easier to beat. So want to mention that point. And then second, in terms of Bitcoin volatility, the volatility is almost at like a 6-year low right now. If you look at the volatility of how it's calculated, the crypto volatility index, the CVI, is the equivalent of the VIX for the crypto index for the crypto industry that is down. There are also other indexes that are being traded in Bittrex. All those volatility is really down, and there are two kind of reasons why. One is, as an asset matures, the volatility goes down. So if when you have a new asset like oil in the early days when oil was there, if they find a new oil reserve, right, then the whole oil production changes and you have huge volatility. You don't have the same volatility of gold, right? Why? Because all the reserves that we have for being able to extract gold, we have already found. We have extracted most of the gold that can be skimmed through from river and other things. And all the gold that we have are not in easy to accessible places. So the volatility of gold is lesser compared to these other assets. So as an asset matures, you're going to have the volatility decrease because people understand it, where it's producing, who's consuming it. But specifically with Bitcoin, the volatility is lower. And I don't believe it's because of a Bitcoin asset maturing. I think something else is going on in the market. I wouldn't call it market manipulation, but you have people like Michael Saylor who have sold $750 million of their stock to buy Bitcoin. So if they do it, say, over a period of a year, which is 750 million, if they're doing it over a period of, say, over 50 weeks, how much is that? It's about roughly about 30 million or so per week, right? So people are buying Bitcoin at a consistent manner. So that's why I think the volatility of Bitcoin is lower.
Interesting. So what do you think that means? Like, also one other thing that I want to ask is, before I ask that, is how like in the VIX, right, in the legacy markets, we can monitor the VIX. Is there a similar type of ticker that we can monitor for Bitcoin volatility?
Yeah. So BitMEX has an index which is specifically for Bitcoin volatility. And then there is also CVI, Crypto Volatility Index, which is the volatility for the entire market. So CVI is the ticker that monitors for the entire market.
Got it. Okay. So you can actually chart that and monitor that like you would a VIX.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. So what about you guys, Mariano?
Yeah.
Mike, what do you guys think about all this?
Yeah, the Bitcoin price, also there's a GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin. There's a 26% discount on the Bitcoins there, which is pretty bullish, I think, because as early as June, I think it was like a 40+% discount on the Bitcoin price. So
Wow.
I think that's also creating a bit of a springboard for Bitcoin. I think we're about to see some crazy volatility. Yeah.
When you say volatility, do you mean to the downside or to the upside?
I don't know.
It would have been a great moment to sell options because of the price remains so stable. It would have been, it would have been a good strategy.
Yeah, definitely.
As I look at the chart right now, it looks, it's just under 30,000. It held 30,000 for a period of time, and now it's right underneath 30,000, kind of trying to break back above. And yeah, to be frank, it doesn't look all that great. So I could definitely see it retrace even further from here. Again, that's just my own non-savvy technical analysis skills. So. But yeah, I would say it looks a little bit more like a volatility to the downside, perhaps. But Bitcoin volatility, yes. So, but there is still bullish news inside the crypto space, which we like to talk about, which is an announcement that was made recently between Microsoft and Aptos. So, VJ, I think that you have some particular insight into that you'd like to address.
So people might have seen the news announcement. Like now we might feel like there is a lot of bullish news, and the press release has all the buzzwords, right? Like now it's like Microsoft partners with Aptos to leverage AI and Web3, right? It has all the buzzwords of AI. It has obviously AI has captured investors' minds, and more importantly their pockets for being able to invest. But the main thing is Microsoft is going to be using Aptos on their payment side of it. So they're going to use Aptos blockchain for some of the payment perspective. But beyond that, they're also planning to train some AI models on the Aptos blockchain. I don't know what it actually means to be training a model on the blockchain. It has a lot of the element of buzzword and keywords that needs to be there for a press release. But the payment side, I think it will be interesting if there is a wider adoption for payments. The AI part, I'm not so sure.
Do you think this is one of those things where, a small segment of a large company effectively, says, yes, we'll do this, we'll pilot this initiative with you. But what it really means on the grand scheme of things is it seems like it means more than it actually means. So do you kind of see that as the case here?
What specifically? Like,
well,
like
it's like, how big of a deal is this for Microsoft, right? How much of a priority are they prioritizing this partnership? Because it looks like it's got the makings of, someone with low-ranking official inside of Microsoft who's got a, $30 million, $20 million budget on something, goes and says, hey, yeah, let's test this out, But do they really give a damn whether it succeeds or not? Like that to me, when you say it's got all the buzzwords, right? Maybe
that's
this is
one
of those things where it's just like an attempt at kind of garnering some press versus actually an application doing anything that sustains itself for months or years.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when OpenAI made the announcement, they did it with Satya Nadella, right? We know that it was at the high level, and they did invest $10 billion. So it's the biggest investment that Microsoft has made outside of their core products. And if you also look at when Facebook announced their Llama, and Mark Zuckerberg also did a post along with Satya Nadella saying that Llama will be offered through Microsoft. So those are big initiatives. I don't remember whether who inside Microsoft was leading the initiative, but it boiled down mostly towards the authenticity of the training data. So if you're training all these large language models, how do you verify that the data that they used is accurate, and also the output that they used is accurate? So that's where the Aptos blockchain angle comes in. How big of an initiative is it inside Microsoft? Not sure.
Wow, interesting. What do you guys think, Mariano, Michael?
I just saw the headline, so I don't know anything, but I agree with you guys.
I feel like wherever there's all the buzzwords, it's usually a red flag or something that it's really nothing. And that's why I'm hesitant of what's going to come out of this.
Yeah, that's where I agree with you, Mariano. Did you have something else you wanted to say there? I didn't know if I let you finish your thought.
Yeah. No. That's
okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. So you see a press release. I think it's important to have a healthy dose of skepticism, right?
Yeah.
Like just because of the headline, Aptos, Microsoft, does that mean you go, YOLO into Aptos? I don't think so, right? Because again, it could be just a low-level initiative that they're exploring, and it doesn't really mean anything. And if it dies on the vine 6 months from now, it's immaterial.
You said it perfectly. A healthy dose of skepticism. I think it's actually a phrase by George Carlin. I think is a comedian. But
George Carlin's the man. Yeah,
George Carlin's the man.
He was the man.
He was the man. There are 7 words you can't say on a podcast, but we're not going to say.
I tell you what, there was a guy I got into a little bit of a Facebook beef with a while back when he was criticizing. He's like, Carlin's overrated. I was like, no, he's not. Carlin's like one of the best
most relevant thing ever. Like,
they're like, dude, he deserves to get discredited for that. Nevertheless, speaking of credibility, I think VJ, there's been some news that's been going on as it relates to UFOs, right? So there's been some kind of some activity, should we say. Now we're going to take a little bit of a departure here, you guys, from crypto for a second, but I think this is a topic that transcends pretty much anything. So, VJ, I think you have a little bit more detail than maybe the rest of us. So why don't you share a little bit of that?
I don't know a little bit more detail, but just that it's in the news a lot. When people generally talk about UFOs, now it has been rebranded as UAP, Unidentified unidentifiable aerial phenomena. People generally are considered nutcases, like not talking about UFOs. However, there is congressional hearing, and a lot of the people who came out and said, hey, there are some of these anomalies that we have seen, who are considered nutcases at one point in time. Turns out like some of what they said is true, right? Still 97% or 99% of what's happening in the space is still filled with a lot of these crazy folks. But there are some information. The White House has released, the Pentagon has released some videos of some recordings which are recorded by infrared cameras, and they don't have any explanation of these objects that are defying physics. And more are showing up. For the last 10 days, there is a big news thing that is going on in India, where they're talking about these 4 unidentifiable aerial phenomenon that a police officer was able to record. So I do think that there is something that is happening at a cultural level and also at government level. So I just thought it'll be interesting to talk about that, not the craziness. Like, no, I don't think that there are that we have like alien bodies with like a big green head and big eyes. I don't think like, we have things like that. Although one of the person, I think, is the head of ATIP, which is an intelligence agency that is responsible for tracking all these unidentifiable aerial phenomenon. And he mentioned that there are biologics that the US government has possession of. And he said that under oath. So we'll have to see. There is a report that is going to be coming out within the next month or so. So let's see what comes out.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty shocking because I watched that a little bit of that testimony that whoever, I don't know who he was necessarily, but yeah, he testified before Congress, like a week or two ago, and it was pretty. I mean, that's pretty groundbreaking to have that testimony in Congress that there is actual, biological phenomena or specimens outside of this universe or outside of this.
I mean, nobody. I mean, he said that it wasn't human, right? But it
Correct.
could be animal.
Yeah, he said non-human biologics.
Yeah,
Yes.
it could be that a bird, I don't know, was it crashed, and he said, "Oh, but we found something non-human."
So what are you guys' overall, like, even before this, but does that change your view before, like, did you not believe that aliens existed? Do you still not believe aliens exist? Or what's everybody's view on that?
I am convinced that aliens exists, and I just feel it. I really feel that there is like something else over the universe. I feel that aliens are good in the sense that they recognize intelligent and sentient creatures, and they would not like make us slaves. Hopefully not. But I do think that all these unidentified flying objects, or whatever you want to call them, are either distortions of camera, and there's a lot of studies that can show this. There's like the parallax effect, especially with heat-seeking cameras. The sensor can be like uncalibrated and things like that. Because I feel like if there are UFOs, like aliens, we would detect them way sooner entering the planet with the network of satellites called I think it's called like the deep space like network or something like that tracks all the asteroids and the meteorites that are like millions of miles away, and they can still track them, and they track them how they are progressing towards the Earth. So I feel like we would have seen them entering like with this network rather than they just appearing now, or they were always here, like for, I don't know, before, like hundreds or thousands of years ago, and every now and then they go up and they go down again. That's also a possibility.
What about you?
I think we're sort of in like in the boonies of our solar system. So, of course, I think there's life out there. Definitely, there's life out there. Is there intelligent life? That's a bit of a different topic. But either way, like, we're sort of on the outskirts of our solar system, on like one of the outer arms. That's where our solar system resides. And just like our Earth needs to be in the what they call the Goldilocks zone of our solar system, where we're not too cold, we're not too hot by being too close to the sun, we're not too cold by being too far away from the sun. We can, life can thrive in this zone, distance from the sun. I think in the same respect, if you look at our galaxy, at the center there's a black hole, and then there's all this stuff in between, and then there's us at the outer arm. I think at the middle it could be, teeming with life at the middle of our galaxy, and no one's really paying attention to us all the way out here in the boonies. So I think, do you guys know who Bob Lazar is?
Bob what?
Bob
Yeah,
Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
Yeah. So he was talking about how the government hired him. He was working on like rockets out of his garage, and the government noticed, and they ended up hiring him for some Area 51 style program. And he talks about how he saw these alien crafts, and they had him working on some sort of drive that was, out of this world, something he's never seen before. That was impossible. Right now he's got a big smirk on his face. He's loving all this stuff coming out. So if you haven't seen the Bob Lazar stories, he's one man that stayed consistent with his accounts of what he saw over all these years, and that's rare amongst these people that talk about UFO stories.
So, and how many? Is this like a multi-decade thing that he's been talking about this, or how long? Approximately?
Yeah, I don't know how long, but since the 80s, I feel like, at least.
Yeah, I think he had a first interview in like the 89 or 94.
Yeah.
And Bob Lazar, brilliant scientist, he was actually in Los Alamos, and he modded his car. He took out an engine of his car, and he put a jet engine, and he was driving it around. So he had his name in the Los Alamos local newspaper saying, "Hey, local man is driving around with a jet engine," and then he apparently got connected with Teller, Professor Teller, who's the father of the hydrogen bomb, the H bomb, and he referred him to this other project out in Nevada, which is in Area S4. And then who knows what happened there, but when he got out of it, he went to the some of the journalists, which is story, and the journalists, they tried reaching out to Los Alamos just to do a background check, and they said that a guy by name Bob Lazar has never worked here, we don't have any records, right? And then that is kind of suspicious. And he also, if you look at his story, it's pretty crazy. There were people who would come and open the window of his car, and they'll open up the window in his home just to second guess himself, make him crazy. And the government started wiretapping his phone, and his wife was having an affair that he didn't know about, and they fired him. So all this craziness that's happening. And when you listen to him, obviously super smart guy, and he's also on kind of the craziness spectrum when it specifically comes to some of the things that he's working on. And the Tic Tac video that was recorded in USS Nimitz off the coast of San Diego, which is one of the testimony that they had in Congress. If you look at that, he mentioned about it that the government is working on something. And he described it as like an anti-gravity propulsion system. And he has like this entire schematics of how it works. And he says, hey, like the one that they saw off the coast of San Diego is probably similar to the system that he was working on.
Wow, fascinating.
Wow.
What a character. That'd be nice to get him on.
He doesn't do interviews too often.
Get him on, should we? So... But let's maybe tie this into what our overall topics are, which are, the financial markets and cryptocurrency. So I guess if it is proven, or we see further, let's put it this way, if we see further evidence that sentient life exists, right? What does that mean for our way of life? What does that mean for our society? What does that mean for, our financial markets? What does that mean for, what do you see as a natural response or reaction to that in society?
fear, right? As the first thing, right? Because whenever humans found something that they do not understand, they fear them. They fear that thing. So I think like there will be a little bit of panic, not mass panic, because I feel like just stating that they found the existence of something does not equate to like, hey, the aliens are coming, right? Or something like that. Could be that, I don't know, there was one alien that crashed, it died, and we saw like, oh, look, we found this, right? And I think that could be very different, and it would not cause like a mass panic thing. It would cause like mass amazement or something like that. But and I think that will bring a lot of attention to like space exploration and what SpaceX is doing, and it will actually propel humanity to forward into doing things faster with what's related to space. But I do feel it will have a tremendous effect actually on religion and the faith of people, where we used to believe perhaps that some people believe that we were alone in the universe and that God created that universe. Well, then I don't know. God skipped the chapter where he mentioned that he created also other people. So it's like it's gonna be quite a big shock, in my opinion.
Maybe there will be a New Testament.
You know? Yeah, imagine that.
I think people are used to all this news coming out for so long, you know, since the 60s, 70s, all this UFO mumbo jumbo. So when real news comes out, it's sort of hard to tell the difference. So I don't think people will believe it right away. They'll kind of just, you know, be like, yeah, okay, cool. That's cool. Like moving on, you know? So I don't think you'll see much panic at first, but once, if anything, you know, if it is discovered that aliens are actually coming to our planet from somewhere else, which is really hard to believe considering the scale of our universe, then yeah, I think it could actually unite people. I think that's what Mariano was just saying as well. Like eventually it would just unite people against, you know.
On that point, Michael, you also have the conspiracy theories that would say something along the lines of, oh, we will create a worldwide government where essentially they will control the currencies of everything because it will be all united against the aliens or something like that. Like the aliens could unite us also on the negative thing where it will be like one country worldwide.
Yeah, it's like what team do you play for? Right now, the team that you play for gets bigger. You're a world citizen now versus a United States citizen.
But then the World Soccer Championship like stops being existing because I mean we are one country.
We'll play soccer against the aliens.
Yeah, we're just gonna teach them first, right?
Yeah, or maybe they are amazing. I don't know.
Teach them how to play so we can beat them.
I feel like aliens look nothing how we imagine they look like.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, you know, aliens are actually look like what Steven Spielberg and all these other directors over the last, you know, 50 years have told us that they.
I think they found life on the or detected life on the moon of Jupiter, Enceladus or something.
They found bacteria.
One of those. Which one is the VJ?
To the lens of a camera or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, you know, I don't know about the life on Jupiter. We'll have to see.
Not on Jupiter, on the moon, because the moon warps with gravity as it goes around Jupiter. Jupiter's so vast and big that the moons, as they're going around, they literally like ebb and flow. Like they'll go like this and they'll go like this, and that creates heat at the core of the moon. And under the ice, it's all frozen. So under the massive ice sheets, they speculate that there might be like whales and sea life under the big ice sheets of it's either Enceladus or one of the other ones. Yeah,
you have been exploring all of this. This is fascinating.
Hey, but going back to your question, Dominic, about what does it mean for the financial market? Mariano called it fear. Like people in the financial industry call it risk. There are a couple of ETFs that have started filing some disclosure statements because this something that we don't understand, right? It just screams risk. What does it mean? When people don't understand it, they automatically go into their fear mode, and there is a lot of risks involved in the financial market because of all these things that are happening. Yes, Michael, there are these things have been happening for decades. However, it's been mostly people on the fringe, right? It's like crazy people. But now the US government has come and said, hey, here is a recording of something that we did. using this infrared camera that is like, we checked it, we recalibrated it. The system itself doesn't have any errors, and we cannot explain what it is, right? That's different when the US government says it versus some nutcases in the back of some garage somewhere saying that they have alien bones which is buried in their backyard.
Why do they always have to be a nutcase? That's what I want to know. Just kidding. So anyways, well, let's kind of, before we tie a bow on this for today, let's bring the what's existential or extraterrestrial conversation back to Earth a little bit and kind of touch on what's been going on in the war in Ukraine. Because I think that there's, some belief that, hey, this thing is just, it's the military industrial complex. If this thing's going to last another 3 to 5 years, it's going to be like a conflict in the Middle East. But I think, Vijay, you have some particular insight on this where you actually believe differently. So you want to share some of those thoughts.
So war has been happening for a long period of time, right? War. There is a quote from some movie. I forgot which movie. It says like, now war is a human condition. As long as we are human, we're going to be having wars. There has been plenty of wars before. There will be plenty of wars in the future, but all wars come to an end. However, the duration and intensity of war started increasing right around the time that we invented money, as we speak, right? Why? Because before, if there are two kingdoms that are fighting and it feels like one of the kingdom is going to lose, they'll immediately try to come together and figure out, right? They'll surrender. They'll figure out, okay, like now, how do we make the best of what resources that we have? Because if the kingdom that is losing, if they run out of gold or other resource to pay their soldiers, then they wouldn't have the resources to take care of their people, and war comes to an end. But once we invented money, the war duration and intensity became much more longer and more intense, because now it is not just running out of gold. You have now printed money, which represents the economic output of a particular kingdom or an economy. And now you have tied the war ending to the entire economy, right? So the government can keep printing more and more money to fund war. And it's not just running out of gold. You'll have to run out of pretty much every single resource in the country. That's why when we invented money, starting around like the 1910, 1920s, we started seeing like World War I and II. It became very much more intense. Now, how does it relate to what's happening in Ukraine? If you look at Russia itself, has a GDP of roughly about 3%, right, of the world GDP. So it's a very tiny proportion. And Russia is not fighting the war against Ukraine, right? So Ukraine GDP, I think, is roughly around 1%. So it's not like 3% versus 1%. It is 3% versus all the NATO countries, right? It's like US, France, UK, all the NATO countries, which is roughly 50% of the world GDP. So I feel like when you are fighting 3% GDP versus 50% GDP, we all know how that's going to end. And Ukraine also launched an offensive. And my prediction is that I think we'll see the end to the war by the end of this year. Ukraine war is going to end. And what does it mean for the financial market? Right? We saw the price of wheat spike up, oil spike up, and all of that is going to come down. So industries that are using specifically oil to a large extent, they are set to benefit a lot more from this.
And risk markets, then I would imagine, would just go absolutely bananas, right? So you'd see risk markets go unhinged for a period of time as well, because they've been suppressed because of this war to an extent. Now, I want to kind of unpack a little bit, and I only have a couple more minutes, but I want to unpack a little bit of what you said there. Is like once money was created, like around what turn of the century, 19th century or 20th century. I think what you mean, just want to clarify what you mean is like when maybe the Federal Reserve existed, we went more of a central banking, or do you want to maybe clarify that?
Yeah, no, what I meant is the creation of fiat money. Right, when we had fiat money, which is money that is not backed by gold. So if you have two kingdoms and they have money backed by gold, right? If the treasury of one of the kingdoms, they ran out of gold, then they cannot pay the soldiers. The war comes to an end, right? Whereas when we created fiat money, we are not giving out gold. We are just giving out paper, IOUs. and the government can print how much ever, right? Like when Germany is close to defeat, they will not surrender because they can keep printing more and more money, and that money gets kind of dissipated. You have like extreme inflation for that the cost of war to be borne by every single citizen in the kingdom, not just when they run out of the treasury.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you feel that that's kind of what's at play here a little bit, is that the strength of the NATO economies, with the United States being the chief one among them, versus the strength of, let's say, the BRICS, right? So where you got Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, right? So the strength of both of those sides is essentially what you're saying, is that arbitrage, or that difference of the GDPs of those countries, and the effect that we can print ourselves out of it, and we have the benefit of the reserve currency on our side. Is that also a little bit of a nuance there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would not necessarily agree with all the BRIC countries that are supporting it. Some of them are, but not all of them are supporting Russia. And also fear is causes spike in VIX, right? Fear is very innate. So when there is war, there is huge amount of volatility, but peace doesn't bring down the volatility that much, right? So peace has more of a calming effect. If you see a tiger right now, your heart rate is going to increase, and you're going to get ready to run away or to attack the tiger. But then once the tiger goes away, it's not like you're going to be completely relaxed and ready to have a drink and chill by the beach. It's going to take some time for the heart rate to come down. So I don't think it'll have the same impact as we had when the war started. But there is a lot of opportunities. If the war comes to an end, there is so many opportunities for being able to make money from it.
Interesting.
I think maybe I wanna add something, which I think that there is a very important factor that is also being played on the socio-political space, which is what if Russia gets Ukraine, right? And NATO does nothing, that would open the door for China to get Taiwan, because it's like, hey, if Russia could do it, why can't I, right? Who's gonna stop me? But I think that's an important thing. I do agree with you, BJ, over the power of money, essentially. But I also think it has to do with energy in a way. Energy powers absolutely everything in the economies. If you think about it, it allows you to do basically everything. If you need to desalinate water, you can do it with energy, for example. And Russia, it is a very important energy player in the world, because they hold the largest gas reserves in the world by far, by a huge amount. And in fact, that's a card that they've been continuing to play, which is like, hey, Europe won't have our gas. Europe won't have our gas. They blew up one of their pipelines, and I think that's something that needs to be taken into account. In fact, I'm actually hopeful, because if the fusion experiments that are being made right now, they promise like unlimited energy, I feel like all wars in the world will stop, because we will have unlimited energy to do whatever we want.
I completely agree with you, Mariano. I think that's a good point. There's an energy consequence as well as the monetary consequence, right? So this is a great topic. I'm glad that we dove down into this and discussed this, in addition to everything else. And so don't forget to make sure down below you like, subscribe, comment, tell us how we're doing. Let us know if there's any other topics that you would love to see. And tell you what, guys, get out there and go chase those tigers, as VJ was talking about. Right? if you're in South America, go grab yourself some leche and some milk. So we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Whoa.